The following episode may contain explicit language and spoilers. Listener discretion is advised.
Hello and welcome to What's Your Fandom, the podcast where myself and my good friend Stuart journey through the fandoms of film, TV, games, books and comics, flying our geek flags and talking our way through the multiverses. All of them. My name is Mike, and in this episode of the podcast, Stuart and I have a good old chat about the first 6 episodes of Series 1 of Doctor Who. I'm talking about the revival from 2005 starring Christopher Eccleston and Billie Piper. And for those of you who don't know, Doctor Who is very much my fandom. It's my absolute favourite thing in the world, to watch. I genuinely couldn't believe that Stuart had never seen Doctor Who before. Considering all the things that he is into, this just ticks a lot of boxes, and I'm not entirely sure how he's managed to avoid it for so long. But then he met me. We were chatting about it one day, and he said he hadn't seen it. I couldn't believe it, but, moved on. Talked about something else. Marvel, Star Wars, I don't remember which. And then he went away and came back and was like, I've watched a few episodes of that Doctor Who with Christopher Eccleston. And I was like, what? Are you serious? And I don't think I even asked him what he thought. I just said, we need to make that discussion an episode on the podcast. And I have to say, I have listened to this back and I sound quite excited. And it's probably because I'm trying to be enthusiastic about it and hoping the enthusiasm will rub off on him so that he carries on watching, so we can talk about Doctor Who forever. And genuinely, I think it's a really interesting conversation that we have, considering that I am a big fan and he has never seen it, and those two things collide and make quite an interesting conversation, and we get to hear Stuart's virginal thoughts about the Doctor, and I can't believe I just said virginal thoughts. Anyway, let's move on. Let's start the episode, shall we? Get yourself a cup of tea, sit back, relax, and enjoy this chat about Doctor Who. Let's go. Stuart, Doctor Who, the first series of Doctor Who. This was the comeback of Doctor Who in 2005, and you've never seen these.
That's right, I've never watched Doctor Who.
How have you never watched Doctor Who?
I think a lot of people are quite surprised at that as well, because knowing the type of things that I'm into and the interest in like time travel and space, that turns a lot of heads actually when people realize I haven't seen it.
It shocked me.
Yeah?
It shocked me, because this is right up your street. And I mean, I know going back to 2005 and watching a show from then is not the same as watching something current, but it's not like going back to the 60s and watching Doctor Who back then. It is relatively recent.
Yeah, I think, I'm trying to think, 2005, so I would have been about...
a mere child, probably.
Yeah, I think I would have been about... How old had I been? 12? Probably would have been about 16.
Carry the one minus. Yeah, well, I'm not even going to try and do the maths, but I was older than you. But really interestingly, actually, though, we have something in common, because Rose was also my first ever episode of Doctor Who that I watched. And Doctor Who genuinely is my fandom. I love Doctor Who.
Of course. And
this is where it started for me with Rose. So I thought what we could do, we're going to talk today about the first 6 episodes of season 1 of Christopher Eccleston's era. Oh, that was a mouthful. Eccleston's a hard word to say with all these teeth. So we're going to talk about that. And I thought what I'll do, I'm going to break it down. I'll give you a little kind of a general roundup of what happened in each episode, and then we can discuss each episode in turn. Okay. So we started off with Rose, which I'm going to read something. So it says here online, this is the actual synopsis for the episode. When ordinary shop worker Rose Tyler meets a mysterious stranger called the Doctor, she is drawn into his strange and dangerous world. Her life will never be the same again. So Stu, will your life ever be the same again after this episode?
Well, do you know what?
What did you think of this episode? What did you think?
Well, it was strange because like I hadn't really seen this episode before, but when it first came back on TV, I do recall it being on telly. I do remember seeing like snippets,
Yeah.
and I was thinking like, oh, Doctor Who, and it just never grabbed me at the time. Um, but back then, I wasn't really into the nerdy stuff that I'm into now.
Oh my
So
God.
I know,
Hold for shock. What?
yeah,
Okay. What were you into? Or is that too much of a tangent?
no, I don't know, no, I don't even know what I was into. Thinking about it, I'm not sure.
Sex, drugs, rock and roll,
Oh, you know me,
all
the
that. Yeah,
party lifestyle.
I'm with you. Yeah, right
Yes,
there too. Me too. Yeah, exactly the same.
yes. Um, yeah. No. So watching it this time, I got to watch it like in full, and I got to give it my full attention.
Yeah.
Um, I mean, yes, at first it was a little bit strange because you had mannequins come into life. Um,
Yes, you
it
did.
had a sort of like a thriller kind of aspect about it. You know, she's walking into the was she in like the basement of the shop?
Oh yes, going into the basement of Henrik's to give Wilson the lottery money. Yeah.
That's right. Yeah, so the way that was shot, I thought that was like really interesting because it wasn't horror as such as it was nowhere near horror, but it had this kind of suspense element, and you kind of
Yeah.
thought, oh, what is something going to jump out between the mannequins? And
Yeah.
then a curveball, no, it is the mannequins. It's like, oh, didn't see that coming.
Oh,
Um,
surprise.
yeah,
It's interesting, really, I think, because the show, I think we can't ignore the fact that the show had a reputation before its comeback in 2005. I think it was mostly known for like wobbly sets, and
mm,
people would probably say the Daleks and the TARDIS, and that was kind of it. It had lost its way completely in the public eye, and
yeah,
this really was a proper big bright rebranding of the show in a very modern way of storytelling, the kind of 45-minute episode chunks. And I think it has a lot of emphasis, this episode, especially on Rose, the companion, so the Ninth Doctor's companion. Um, I think Billie Piper was great, actually, in this. Because I've just rewatched them as well in order to talk to you about them. And she surprised me again. I think she jumps off the screen, you know?
yeah, yeah. I think the good thing about for somebody like me watching it is because I don't have any kind of expectation. I kind of felt like, in some ways, I was like Rose in the sense
Yeah,
of I have no clue who the Doctor is. I don't know what's going on,
yeah,
but you just get swept up in this adventure like with her, and
100%. Rose is the kind of way in, isn't she? She's the audience's way into this episode.
yeah,
Actually, probably to this whole season, she's probably what we're watching, and the Doctor is sort of this sort of mystical, magical person next to her that like a hero, but like a wacky, crazy, random hero who she
mm,
doesn't know anything about, and she just gets into the ship with him. I
yeah,
mean, let's be honest, that's a bit mental, isn't it? I
it
mean,
is.
not that I would say no either, but logically, that's mental.
Yes,
But hence the adventure. So you mentioned mannequins earlier. So they are actually called the Autons,
Autumn.
which, right, yeah, Autons. They're a classic monster from the classic Doctor Who era where mannequins have come to life before in Doctor Who. So it was quite a nice little callback for the people who liked the classic show.
Uh,
And it's living plastic, which I thought was quite a nice thing. I mean, I'm going to put this out there, okay? When if I was to introduce somebody to Doctor Who for the first time, I'm not always necessarily sure I would give them series one to watch. And that's not because it's not good, it's just because it does have a kind of cheese factor.
hmm,
I think it was made for families. I think it's made for kids as well at this point to get this new generation of people. They weren't making it for the adults who watched it back then. They're making it for the kids to go into the schoolyard the next day and, you know, pretend that a mannequin arm is strangling them because it's the Autons.
yeah,
Do you know what I mean? So
yeah.
there are bits of this episode that I think have got a bit of cheese. I mean, I'm just gonna say, I mean, Mickey Smith and his wonderful relationship with that bin. Yeah. I mean, CGI. How do you feel about the CGI?
Well, I think I went into it sort of, know what CGI was like, back in like the early 2000s. At the time when you're in the 2000s and you're watching CGI, you think it's great.
Yeah,
But yeah, you watch it in retrospect and you can see like, oh, it's not that great, but you just kind of accept it for what it is.
of course.
And I wouldn't say like, oh, this episode is bad because the CGI was rubbish. I felt like the CGI almost like in some ways didn't really matter.
I agree. And interestingly enough, I'm relatively new to classic Doctor Who, so I'm going back and watching those at the moment, and you have to accept what they made in the 70s is how it looks on screen.
Yeah.
But it doesn't change how good the stories were.
No.
And that's what's always surprising me as I kind of carry on rediscovering and discovering new Doctor Who, you know?
Yeah.
What do you think of Christopher Eccleston?
I thought he was good. I think he's bringing this sort of eccentricity to the role. But again, I went in there not knowing what the Doctor was actually like.
Yeah. I think you message me, I think, and you were just like, so am I supposed to know anything? Like I'm going in knowing nothing about what's happening. And I was like, no, I was exactly the same. You know nothing. You'll learn as it grows, you know?
Yeah. Because I was even surprised. I actually thought, I mean, this is just what I'm picking up so far on these 6 episodes, is that I actually thought his name was Doctor Who. But
right.
What they seem to be saying is that he's just the Doctor, and because of this mystique that he has,
yes,
he's just the Doctor.
That's right. The program is really asking the bigger question of who is the Doctor.
Yeah.
And I guess that's what all the actors that play the Doctor kind of have a hand in doing as well, is sort of bringing new layers to who the Doctor is and what he stands for, he or she or they. I have to say as well that Jackie Tyler, Rose's mum, is probably one of the best characters that's ever been on screen ever. She has these brilliant one-liners as we go through the series, and she's genuinely somebody who I love watching on screen. But for me, there was a standout moment when Christopher Eccleston talks to Rose, Billie Piper, about what it means to be the Doctor, and he holds her hand and he describes, I can't remember the exact words, but something about the earth turning beneath his feet and everything kind of living, everything being, he can feel and sense it all and see everything that was or will be. I remember thinking, ooh, that's good.
That's deep.
It was deep. Interesting. And I want to ask you one more question about this episode then. So, Mickey Smith, Rose and Mickey.
Yeah.
How do you feel?
I feel bad for him.
Do you?
I do. Yeah.
I think you're supposed to.
Yeah, I think he's found himself in a situation where 1 minute everything is fine, life is normal, he has a girlfriend, and then here comes this Time Lord with, how do you compete with somebody that's got that level of charisma, that level of confidence, and he's a Time Lord on top of it?
People say that to me all the time, Stu. Honestly, it's hard. It's difficult. It really is.
How do you do it?
It's a burden you kind of learn to live with,
Yeah.
I feel bad for him too, but I think I always saw them as boyfriend and girlfriend from the start.
Yeah.
But in kind of later years, I'm wondering whether they were just kind of friends with benefits who had a good connection and no doubt might have been going down the route of becoming boyfriend and girlfriend. But I feel if they were together, they were boyfriend and girlfriend, why would she run off into this box?
Yeah.
She just left him on the floor, like in an alley in Cardiff. I mean, London, but Cardiff.
Yes.
Do you know what I mean? I just feel like, I'm not sure. I mean, and I don't like her for that.
Yeah, I question her loyalty when it comes to stuff like that as a character.
Unless they weren't together. Unless it was a bit more casual than we perhaps were led to believe. But still, we were led to believe it, so it is what it is.
Yes.
Anyway, she runs into that TARDIS, and interesting fact, Russell T Davies who was the writer of the episode and who is the executive producer of the show at this time, he's kind of steering the ship. He wanted the first 2 episodes to air on the same night and be like like an event, like a film, which it does pick up the second after the first episode ends, the second episode starts, the end of the world, which is a barking episode, I'm going to call it that. The Doctor takes Rose to the year 5 billion to witness the destruction of the Earth. He's just showing off.
Yes.
absolutely showing off, and it is an absolutely wild episode. What did you think?
It was pretty wacky, wasn't it? I think, like I say, maybe I'm wrong being a newbie to Doctor Who, but I kind of felt like there was a moment where they had like all the survivors like up on that ship there.
Yeah.
The way they were kind of introducing people, to sort of call everybody in, it almost felt like BBC were kind of going, "Look at all the creatures that we can put in Doctor Who."
Yeah.
It was like almost like a way of sort of showcasing, like, I mean, I don't know if those characters or those races were in the originals.
They were all brand new.
Oh, they're all brand new.
All brand new.
Oh, right there, they were just showing off. Huh? So
yeah, I think from what I know about what happened with this episode, Russell kind of blew the budget for the season on this episode to kind of show what they could do in terms of CGI, in terms of creatures, in terms of scale, and it's a really nice location as well. They used to film it, which they do use again and again. It's redressed a lot. But it doesn't make it any less wild and camp. It's crazy. I mean, some of the prosthetics are amazing, though.
yeah,
I like the Jabe, the tree queen of the trees.
Yes.
I thought she looked really cool.
Yeah,
and the giant face of Bo, the massive face in the big tank. It's just a bit wild, isn't it? It's just a bit. I'm saying it out loud now, and I'm like, this is mental. But I think it really did show like how Doctor Who could look now. You know, back in 2005. I say now. I mean then. It's a whole time travel thing. The Lady Cassandra. She's kind of known as the bitchy trampoline in fandom. Well, she's a sheet of skin, isn't she? She's the last human. She's the thinnest human, and she was camp as well. But I kind of loved her.
Yeah. I was when I was watching that episode, my son rightfully asked me like, "What are you watching?" I just said, "Oh, it's just Doctor Who." But then my wife, she was watching bits of it. She wasn't really like interested in it. She wasn't really watching it actively the way I was.
Yeah.
But she did point out to me, I forget the actress's name now, but she recognized the actress who was playing the bitchy trampoline. As you described.
Zoe Wanamaker. Yeah.
That's it. Yeah. And I didn't see it at first, but then obviously I heard her voice, and I was like, "Oh yes."
You can't unhear it. I mean, I think in terms of scale, I think the story is quite cool. It's kind of a big action kind of a film in a way. Like the sun is exploding and it's destroying the earth, and this is where he chooses to take Rose, and rightfully so. She is very overwhelmed, and I actually quite liked seeing that kind of very human reaction, which I think was normal for us watching TV and putting anybody in a fantastical event like that. I think you would react that way. Interesting fact, though, this was the first time that Doctor Who used the psychic paper, which is the paper that he can use to. It's like a little wallet. He shows things, and it shows people what he wants them to see, so he can get into places that he might not be able to get into normally, and it kind of just makes the story go a bit quicker because you can just show it and be like, "Hi, I'm here to inspect your air conditioning," if that's what he needs to do. Do you know what I mean? That's the kind of thing. It is. And also, it's the first time that this has ever been explained in Doctor Who, which is mind-boggling to me. But it's the translation circuit. So the idea that the TARDIS is into your brain, so it's psychically, so that you can understand what every alien is saying.
Genius.
Isn't it a genius move?
Yeah.
And it's genuinely never been discussed on Doctor Who before. They all just spoke English.
Yeah. I do wonder now, though, mentioning stuff like that, and I think, especially if you look at the way TV shows are like now, I feel like they know that the audience, and I'm not having a jab at like people who like the originals, but like audience now are like, they're a little bit more kind of smarter.
Yeah.
So they would ask like, "Well, how come all the aliens speak English?"
Yeah.
And then they just pull out this card and go, "Haha."
Yeah, definitely. I think it was really clever. I was well impressed, and I didn't realize until I was looking up stuff for this episode that it had never been done before in the show's history. I mean, it's 60 years old this year, and that was the first time that it decided to do that. I thought it was mental.
Groundbreaking.
But then from the end of the world, we end up in Cardiff in the 1800s. I know, this was quite a departure. How do you feel about The Unquiet Dead? What did you think?
I thought that was good.
Yeah.
Again, what impressed me with these episodes is not that they changed the tone as such, but they were able to change the setting so frequently, and they kept it fresh, but it still had that sort of familiarity as well. So it's not like you were watching a completely different show, but you were aware it was a different episode.
Yeah.
But again, I even like the effects of the, like the dead coming back to life and that side of it. I was I quite like that. There was a bit of a jump scare, wasn't there? I think right at the start. Was there a character in a coffin?
Yes.
Right, yeah. And I was kind of prepping myself for that because I don't like horrors or jump scares. And I was like, it can't be that scary. And it wasn't, thankfully.
No, but like on paper, it's ghosts, it's zombies, it's gas alien creatures. There's a lot, we're at an Undertaker's, they have a seance. I mean, it's ticking a lot of boxes for kind of all those horror tropes.
Yeah.
But you're right, it is quite a shift. And I personally, I mean, talking about fandoms, I absolutely love the fact that the Ninth Doctor was completely fanboying out to Charles Dickens.
Yes.
Being like, Charlie boy, loved it.
Yes.
Mental. I thought, actually, funny enough, this was the first time that I watched this episode at Christmas time. I've never watched this particular episode because it aired in like April time, which has always been connected to sort of spring for me. But I've put The Unquiet Dead on this Christmas, and it's almost a Christmas episode.
I suppose, yeah, in ways I could see that.
That kind of Victorian ghost story, Charles Dickens, Christmas Carol sort of way. There's snow, there's lights. I don't know, it had something kind of festive about it, and it worked for me a lot more that time of year.
Yeah. I tell you what I did like about that episode. The ending to that episode, when everything's kind of resolved.
Yeah.
And there's an exchange between Charles Dickens and the Doctor. I remember like watching it. There's something really quite, I don't know, almost kind of somber but reassuring. And it was when Charles Dickens, he asks the Doctor, he says, "My books, do they last?"
Yeah.
The Doctor's like, "Yeah." He says, "How long?" He says, "Forever."
Yeah.
I thought, wow.
It's a lovely moment, wasn't it? Yeah. And then undercut almost immediately afterwards by him saying that, and he dies next year.
Yeah.
Mental. But like I like this I like the idea, this particular episode of being, first of all in Cardiff, which obviously Doctor Who is made in Cardiff, and I think that and Russell T Davies is Welsh, so bringing a Welsh factor to it all was quite cool, because I think you don't see Wales being in mainstream programs like this, especially in this kind of capacity. So that was quite nice to bring it back to Wales. I thought it looked stunning, the way they put the snow on that street, and they had horses and carts and all the costumes. I mean, you can really tell, they have spent a lot of money on this.
Yeah.
I think it feels like it. And I liked Mr. Sneed and Gwyneth, who work at the Undertakers. It's his Undertakers, and he's got that really strong Welsh accent, which I laughed. He's like, "The stiffs are walking again," or something, and I was like, "What's he on?" I loved it, but that is kind of that camp, classic Welsh. I loved it. I thought it was really funny.
Yeah.
A lot of people really like Gwyneth and her performance in this episode.
Yeah, she was good. I mean, I'll be honest with you, when I watched it, I was about 5 minutes in before I went, "Oh, she was in Belonging."
Yes. Yeah.
I kept because I found I was doing that with this show. I kept spotting actors and randomly shouting out the TV shows that they were previously in.
See, in my house, it's the other way around. It's everything else. They go, "Oh yeah, they're in Doctor Who."
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, I thought her performance was really, really interesting and quite pared back.
Mm.
And I love there's a scene where she's speaking to Rose in like a pantry or something, and they're having a little conversation, and you start learning that she might have some sort of psychic ability, and she's hearing voices. She can see the future, or she can see into Rose's mind. There was something quite, I don't know, their connection was really, really there. I
Yeah.
felt it. And there was I don't know, I thought that was really, really well done and well played between the two actresses. I thought it was really interesting.
Yeah, I also like the perspective as well of seeing, you're seeing a lady from is sort of, it would be like Victorian times if it was like 1800s, isn't it? So
Yeah.
her perspective of things against like Rose's perspective, and really think about
Yes.
it, like she was saying that like she only goes to school once a week,
Yeah.
and like
Yeah.
how much stuff had changed over the last couple hundred years, and where Rose is at in life, and I thought that was quite cool to see that shift.
And it was an interesting shift. You're right. I think this is something that comes up kind of as you go through the show. Sometimes when you get the historical episodes, the companions almost become like the Doctor, and a lot of the characters from the past end up becoming their companions in a way that because for the first time, that this isn't a companion on an alien planet or in the future completely out of their depth. This is them on their world, but they're from the future, so they have more knowledge
Yeah.
than the people from that time do. So I think that happens quite a lot, and it makes for a really interesting character dynamics, I think.
Yeah.
But something, yeah, no, this episode for me for some reason stood out a lot this time when I watched it back. Although it could have been the Christmas factor, I guess.
Could have been.
Could have been, but really nice. And this is a kind of template that the new Who has done. It's sort of like the first episode establishes the companion. The second is we're off to the future. The third is then let's go to the past. And then the fourth is normally a contemporary adventure then back in the current time for that companion,
Yeah.
which does bring us on to kind of Aliens of London, World War III, the two-parter with the Slitheen. The Slitheen. I'm going to quote you something from this episode, and I'm going to do my best Slitheen voice. Okay.
Oh, fire away.
Would you prefer silent but deadly? That's an actual quote from Doctor Who.
That is it.
How do you feel about this pair?
Well, it was an interesting episode because it throws you off, doesn't it? Because it's not just a simple case of an alien invasion. It kind of spins it all on its head a little bit, doesn't it? Where it actually transpires that they staged the invasion in order to then get into because they were obviously like they were in like number 10, weren't they?
They were.
So they were obviously influencing events in number 10, but they had to sort of stage the invasion to justify actions.
Yes.
And yeah, the reveal of the aliens I thought was really cool, like the unzipping of the forehead.
I know. Again, camp but grim.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was I gotta say that was one of those moments where like when it was, the first time you see it, I did kind of laugh and I was like, oh Christ.
Yeah, I think we are supposed to.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think there's a British humor to Doctor Who that never really goes away, and I think it's just embedded in there, and stuff like that does pop up. I think series 1 has more of it, and the more that the show kind of grows up with itself as we go through it, you'll see it maturing and getting a bit darker, a bit more adult, or a bit more complicated. But for the sake of these 2 episodes, I think, can you imagine being a kid at that time watching that, getting really excited, and the next day pretending to unzip your forehead in school? I just think that's what it was for, and it works for that. And what do you think about the Slitheen?
I thought, like I say, you got to kind of see past like the visuals,
and the fact that they fart.
Yeah, that was a bit like, what? Like, what's going on? Like, um,
Yeah.
but then I suppose there's a sense of realism. I wonder. I mean,
Yeah, sure.
yeah, yeah, that was a bit of a strange decision, I think, because I mean, I've watched like sci-fi things before, and I've watched fictional things and fantasy. Not very often do you see people being flatulent in a show.
No, I think this is probably a first and only, probably.
Yeah,
Um, but then it's really interesting though, because I feel like so the element, the unzipping and the farting, they're quite juvenile, I guess. They're for the kids and for the families watching to have a laugh at and be scared of.
mm,
But there's also this strange thing. Like there's a scene, obviously. So in this episode, the Doctor and Rose come back and they think they've been gone away for 12 hours, but it's actually been 12 months.
yes,
And in that time, Jackie's been worried sick. There are posters everywhere for her missing daughter.
yeah,
Mickey's been questioned for the potential murder of Rose. He was a suspected murderer of her because she just vanished.
yeah,
And so that's a really like dark adult thing
yes,
whilst there are giant green aliens farting.
yes, yeah,
I think and that in a way that kind of sums up Doctor Who in a lot of ways. Because
yeah.
it's so opposite.
It is, isn't it? It's yeah, they definitely know how to throw a curveball. I will say, like every episode I watched, like there was always something like unexpected that like I didn't find it was like too predictable.
That's good. What
So, I
what
mean,
what surprised you in this one then?
well, like the motivation behind the alien invasion was the main one for me.
Okay.
So you think it's one thing, like I said, or you think like, oh, okay, because at the end of the previous episode, when it basically does the whole, next time,
Next
Doctor
time.
Who,
Yeah.
I sounded like the self-service checkout in Tesco then.
Yeah, it's the spit. Are you moonlighting again?
Yes. But like, yeah, so when it does that, it shows like the UFO like crashing into Big Ben, and
Yeah.
Doctor Who's all like, "Oh, aliens have invaded Britain" and all that. So you think, "Oh, well, that's all it's going to be. It's alien invasion." But then, yeah, when you learn more about why it's happened and how it's happened, yeah, I definitely found it more like, "Oh, this is different."
Yeah, they staged the invasion, didn't they?
Yeah.
To put the country on high alert in order to get the alien experts in one place to get rid of them,
Yes.
so they could destroy the world and then sell the scraps. It's yeah.
Yeah. No, that was something. That was something that I was thinking of just now. Was that I've never seen that before. I've watched like alien invasions in films. You always see it. They take over the world. They either take over the world or they blow it up or they destroy it. I've never seen someone try to conquer a world and then flog it.
Yeah. Yeah. That you're right, actually. You're right.
You
I
don't
don't think
see
I've
that,
seen that either. No.
and I quite like that. That
Yeah, absolutely.
they're profiting off their domination. I thought that was quite cool.
And it is cool. I mean, I also like in this episode, there's a lot of good stuff in this two-parter. And I think in my brain, I'm trying not to be too hard on it, right? Because I think if I'm being completely honest, that I have this game, this game that I play with some friends who like Doctor Who, where the current running of the show, the episodes per season are getting less and less and less.
Mm.
And there's no, I think a lot of TV shows are going the same way. They're spending more money on each one, so it's taking more time to make. And yeah, anyway, so we kind of play this game where if you had to remove episodes from a season to make it a kind of a tighter, more coherent, stronger season, what episodes would you remove? And when I think about season one, I think I would automatically think to remove Aliens of London and World War III because they are a kind of contained story, a two-parter that has a lot of, farting. So I think in my head I'm being automatically a bit too harsh on it, but actually there is some really good stuff in it. I really, really liked how throughout all of this, the Doctor and Rose's relationship and how it's growing, and how they really are trusting each other. And there's that scene in the boardroom where the Doctor's on the phone to Jackie saying that, I could save the world, but I could end up killing your daughter.
Mm.
And that's the kind of choices that I've got to make.
Yeah.
And I just think it suddenly all becomes very real, and I think that's what's really interesting about the writing of this show. And it doesn't stop; it's always like this, but it switches from being jovial and funny and hilarious and sexy and silly, and it suddenly becomes very serious and very like,
Yeah.
oh, hang on, we've got a job to do here, and actually the world might end. This could be World War III.
Yeah. There's something
You
at stake.
know, yeah, and it feels it. It is quite a big. They've all been quite big episodes so far, with the exception of maybe the Unquiet Dead, which is kind of a quieter, contained little ghost story. But
Yeah.
it becomes epic. I mean, I forgot to say as well about that episode where they were in the morgue at the end, and the Doctor and Rose were like trapped, and all those zombies were reaching for them. That was quite creepy.
It was a bit, wasn't it? Yeah.
For kids watching, I often think, oh, there's meant to be children watching this. This is a bit much.
Yeah.
But anyway, they get farting aliens next week, so it's not a problem. They'll crack on.
Or the crack off.
Yeah, I'll crack off. Absolutely. And then we kind of finish the two-parter with Rose sort of being like, right, I'm coming with you now. You're stuck with me. I'm coming with you. And I think, does the Doctor offer Mickey, he said, come with me, you helped save the world. I do have to point out one little thing, which is a little bit frustrating. The fact that Mickey Smith, with his PC in his bedroom, could launch a nuclear or whatever, or launch some missiles to bloody destroy Downing Street.
Yeah. I remember taking issue with that.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't mind, like, visual effects and stuff like that, and little plot devices, as you say, about the handy, the universal ID, if you like. I'm okay with that.
Yes.
But yeah, when Doctor Who went, oh yeah, I'll just give you this pin and you can control missiles.
Yeah.
I was like,
yeah.
Really?
It seemed like, you have to suspend yourself a bit. Like I don't know how that happened, but yeah, the Doctor is all very so clever. He was able to do that, but I don't know. I'm still a bit like, I'm unsure.
Yeah, no, I feel the same way.
Yeah. So but then he offers Mickey a place to come, and Mickey's like, no, I'm not going to come with you because it's not my life.
No.
I mean, I just blew up a Slitheen with pickled onions and vinegar in my kitchen, which was gross, by the way.
Yes.
And so he chooses not to go, which I think Rose. I'm glad Rose doesn't know. I like the fact that Mickey and the Doctor had that moment, and that he wasn't just taking the mick out of him. See what I did there. But they go off onto the next adventure, and they land in a underground museum full of bits of alien artifacts, and the Doctor and Rose could see lots of little bits in cases, and there's a Slitheen arm, and there's other pieces of other aliens, and then they get jumped out by some armed guards and carted off to see the big bad boss. And he's got a Metaltron in a cage. So this obviously is the episode called Dalek, and this I feel is quite a turning point in the season. I think this episode is quite a moment. What did you think about the episode Dalek?
Oh, I thought it was a great one.
Yeah?
Yeah, I really enjoyed this one.
Oh, okay, cool. Tell me why.
Because, I mean, we're sort of at the halfway point of the season now.
Yes.
And yeah, when it said like, oh, the next episode is going to be Daleks for episode 6, I was like, here we go. I guess even I know Daleks are kind of a big deal.
Kind of, yeah.
Kind of, yeah.
They may have come. They may have been in it before.
Yes, I think. I was interested to see how the Dalek like came about in this episode, and to see the relationship between the Time Lords and the Daleks just through sort of exposition. Like there was no flashbacks.
Yeah.
Just stuff that was being said. And it kind of like left it to your imagination as to what this war must have been like.
Yeah.
And the voice acting for the Dalek as well was great, because even though, as far as I was aware at this point, by the way, this was just like a robot.
Yeah.
As far as I could see.
Yeah.
So hearing like almost like the rage in his voice, and like, the anger, the bitterness towards the Time Lord, and then to have Christopher Eccleston, reciprocating that almost at the same kind of level. I think, oh my God, like these are like mortal enemies.
Yeah, absolutely. God, his performance in that room where he realizes it's a Dalek, and then he realizes it can't fire on him, and he goes so, you're right, rageful, and he's proper vengeful, and such a powerful performance from Eccleston there.
Yeah. Yeah, I thought it was really good. I actually didn't realize as well, again, because I hadn't like seen Doctor Who before, I'd seen what a Dalek looked like, but didn't really know what it did.
Yeah.
I didn't realize how much of an efficient killer it was.
Yeah.
I mean, it's up there with like Terminator.
100. Yeah, I think that's kind of the point of the episode. I think it's to, classically there were elements of the Daleks that were seen as a bit of a joke because they were just guys on a little bike inside a little plastic pepper pot, and they would bump into the sets, and they would, you know what I mean, they would wiggle about, and they became a little bit of a joke with the general public, not with the fans. The fans always love a Dalek. Well, I say that, we'll come to that another day. But this really did show how efficient, you are right, how disastrous just one Dalek at full strength could be.
Yeah, I was blown away by that. And of course, you had like that scene as well, which I think this was a scene that I'd heard people talking about but never actually seen it. And it's where he's faced with like a flight of stairs.
Yeah.
And yeah, they think like that they're safe. They're like, oh, it's stairs, it's fine. And then he starts to elevate.
Yeah, elevates.
Like, oh, okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, I mean,
Well, it's about time, isn't it? And it does make a lot of sense, and it really does make them a new threat again. And suddenly, I think that's the whole point. They're finally now a threat again. Well, there was one last Dalek that slipped through the Time War. I love the look of the Dalek. Did you like how it, like the kind of bronze?
Yeah.
It was
like a sort of a copper kind of metal. Yeah, I thought that was quite cool. It was almost industrial.
Yeah, and that was the first time that color had been used. That kind of, it's quite iconic actually. What they've done is they've done a really, really good job in updating it.
Yeah.
And obviously the episode, it all goes a bit wild, and the Daleks feeds off Rose's time force energy, whatever it is, and he regenerates himself and goes through the base, killing everyone. Just gliding about, killing people. Nothing will stop it. And that bit where the middle bit was spinning around and shooting that way and then shooting that way, and he absorbed the internet. I just this is a proper worrying foe.
Yeah.
But to then get to a point where actually it didn't know what to do because it's bred to take orders, and it doesn't kill Rose, and this Dalek has been changed by her.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I thought that was good. I think as well, like seeing a Dalek, like, I'm gonna make this sound accidentally really tragic, but seeing a Dalek like lose its purpose, was quite sad.
Yeah, it was quite sad.
Yeah, like,
I don't think that's ever been done before in Doctor Who. I mean, I'm not an expert in classic, but like to be emoting with a Dalek. And then there's the Doctor standing there with a gun ready to kill it, and Rose is like, "No, he's not pointing the gun at me. You are."
Yeah,
that's quite grown up telly.
Yeah, it was, isn't it? And I think as well, it showed that sort of. I think as well, it was good character development for the Dalek, but also for the Doctor as well.
Yeah, I agree.
But I don't think. Would you say that they made peace with their conflicts?
I feel like. Oh, that's a tough one, isn't it? Because I don't know whether the Doctor can ever, being the last survivor of that war, I don't know whether he can ever be at peace. But then being victorious, I guess, at the end of it all. I mean, obviously the Dalek was like, well, I'm going to die now because I have nothing else left.
Yeah. Whereas
the Doctor has not made that decision, so obviously that kind of differentiates them. The Doctor is deciding to keep going and to keep traveling and I don't know, helping where he can and teaching people to be better. And I guess that's what he's all about.
Yeah.
But it is interesting. I don't know whether they were at peace, but I mean, it's certainly the end of a chapter.
Yeah.
The end of the Time War, I guess.
Yeah. I thought it was interesting as well when the Dalek sort of like opened up its shell,
Yes,
I guess you
yeah,
could say.
yeah,
Um, for me, that was like on the similar kind of level of like watching like Star Wars when Return of the Jedi, when Vader's mask comes
yeah.
off.
I guess it is. Yeah,
I was like, as it was like opening up, I was like, oh, let me see, let me see. I just wanted to
yeah,
see what was inside.
yeah,
And amazing how like, you know, you look at this like efficient killer that's just like just racked up a massive body count, and then you open it and you see this little creature inside.
yeah,
And it's like that just caused all this. Like,
yeah, yeah.
but I like that sort of that contrast of like this sort of this tough exterior, but then on the inside, you know,
All
soft,
squishy.
colorful. Yeah, squishy.
Squishy and dripping.
Yes.
Let's pretend I didn't say dripping on the podcast.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I mean, that was the first 6 episodes. I think pretty strong.
Yeah.
I feel like, I mean, how do you feel about these characters and what the show is so far?
Well, it's good because I was worried that I was going to start watching it and I was going to get 2 episodes in and be like, "What the hell is this?" And then like turn it off and think, What was that?"
Yeah,
And I'm thankful that that didn't happen. I'm still curious now to see what's the next mission for the Doctor and Rose. Like, where's it going?
yeah.
And I wonder if there's like obviously there's a plot for each episode. I wonder if there's like sort of an overarching plot for the season.
Well, to that, I'm just going to say 2 words:
Right.
bad wolf.
Bad Wolf.
Yeah. And I'm not going to say anything more on that because I'm not going to spoil anything. I'm all about the spoilers, but those are my 2 words.
Right.
Yeah. So, what are your expectations for the rest of the season then?
Well, I do feel like I don't think that there's going to be an episode that'll be as good as the Dalek episode.
Okay.
But I couldn't even predict where they would go or when they would go next because they can literally go anywhere at any time.
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't really know what to expect really. I wouldn't be surprised if there's more kind of wackiness with
Yeah.
with more creatures and such. But yeah, no, I'm interested to see where it goes, and I'm invested now. I'm very much like at least get through season 1 just to see, and then knowing my luck with the season 1 finale, I'll be like, right, series 2, let's do it.
Well, it'd be really interesting. I think it's really cool that you're speaking so positively about it because I didn't even know if you were gonna like it. I was always, obviously, like we said before, I was surprised you hadn't seen it, but I wasn't sure you were gonna get it. Do you know what I mean? You're gonna be into it. But you know what? You might just watch this one season and be like, I'm done, and that might be it. I don't know how I could possibly do that because I feel like you're like me. You like to kind of like ingest as much about these fandoms that you get into as you can.
Yeah.
You know. But it's really interesting as well. I mean, for me to hear your perspective about this as a first-time viewer, bearing in mind the show came back in 2005 and is still going on. It's the 60th anniversary this year.
Yeah.
And I mean, really briefly, because I don't want to tangent too much, but like, are you like aware of what's going on in Doctor Who in general? Are they part of what you see in terms of like seeing about sci-fi and stuff online or anything like that?
No, not really. I mean, I understand it was a big deal because we had a female Doctor.
Yeah.
But beyond that, yeah, no, I don't really know.
Okay, this is really interesting. So I think you should keep it like that. I think you should avoid looking things up, especially avoid following any social media accounts that are Doctor Who related, and come to this if we continue this down this route.
Yeah,
fresh and like unbiased and not knowing, because it's really interesting to hear what you think.
Yeah, that'd be interesting to see. Like, I'm looking forward to continuing to watch it and just seeing where it goes. And I do hope that I don't drop off, and because that's the thing, sometimes you like the idea of a show,
Yes,
and then when you watch it, then it's like, oh, actually, no.
It's got to be your mood as well. But please don't rush to watch anymore. we're just going to take this as it comes. When you feel like you want to dip your toe back into Doctor Who, you carry on, and then we'll do the next chunk. But I think doing it in chunks like this, like watching it in chunks and then discussing that chunk, is probably the best thing to do.
Yeah.
Because we can do it. We could not be talking about it for another 6 months.
True.
But it's whatever you fancy, like in your life. Do you know what I mean?
Yes.
But what's the so no spoilers. The next episode is called The Long Game.
Okay.
And you've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. You've got 7 episodes left of this season. And for me, there are some very strong episodes coming up in the next 7 episodes. Yeah, but I'm excited for you to see, and I'm excited for you to tell me what you think.
Yeah. Oh, excellent.
So that's cool. So that's it for me. So you tell me you've got a quote.
Right. Yeah. So this is a movie quote.
I love this. So and this is the one I've got to guess what it is, but tell you next time what it is.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm going to be perfectly honest. It's probably going to be incredibly obvious.
So you've done a lot of work finding this quote then this week.
Well, weirdly, I did have a quote earlier, but I changed it. I thought, no, that's too obvious. And I found another one, and I thought, oh, that's equally as obvious.
Oh, fantastic. Right, so, go on, let's do. Quote me.
Right, here we go. Excuse me, I think the word you're searching for is Space Ranger.
I do like how you do it in Welsh.
Yeah.
I do. And you know what? I'm feeling inspired. I'm going to do a quote for you in Welsh, in a Welsh accent as well, okay? And you can have, and it's not one for you to guess, but it's just because I'm feeling fruity and I want to do it.
Fair enough.
Excuse me, do you mind not farting while I'm trying to save the world?
That's brilliant.
I thought so.
Thank you for listening to What's Your Fandom. Please hit the subscribe button to make sure that you never miss an episode. And if you could leave us a review wherever you listen to your podcasts, not only will we be your bestest friends forever, but it will also help other listeners to find us. You can follow us on TikTok and Instagram, where our username is @fandompod, and on YouTube, just search for What's Your Fandom. And we will catch you next time.